Okay, you're going to want to pay attention to this, because what went down in just a single day, well, it might just be one of the biggest turning points in modern history. Seriously, the whole world order is cracking open, and we're about to piece it all together.
And look, that's not me being dramatic. Our source material calls this the single most important day in American economic history since 2008. What happened today has set off a chain reaction. It's reshaping alliances, it's challenging laws, and it's pushing entire nations right to the edge.
All right, so let's get into it. The first domino to fall, a huge Supreme Court decision that absolutely sent shockwaves through Washington and, frankly, the entire global economy.
So at the very center of all this chaos is a law from way back in 1977 called the IEPAA. Now, it was originally designed to give the president some serious emergency powers, but only for, real national security crises like sanctioning hostile countries or freezing terrorist assets. But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the difference between what that law was meant for and how the administration was actually using it. They basically took that phrase emergency powers and just ran with it. They used it as the legal excuse to slap these huge tariffs on pretty much the entire world, totally twisting its original purpose.
Well, that all changed today. The Supreme Court, in a big 6-3 decision, basically said, nope, you can't do that. They ruled that the president does not have the authority to use this act to raise money with tariffs. That power, they said, belongs to Congress. End of story. Just like that, the administration's entire global tariff strategy was declared illegal.
And you have to think about the money here. I mean, every single dollar collected under those tariffs, we're talking over $160 billion, might now have to be refunded to the companies that paid it. That's not just a budget issue, it's a financial earthquake. A hole that big could rock the federal budget for years and affect everything from road projects to social programs.
So how did the president respond? It was immediate and, well, completely unprecedented. He didn't just disagree with the ruling. He reportedly went nuclear, calling the justices, and yeah, that includes his own appointees, fools and lapdogs, and very unpatriotic. And then he claimed, with no evidence, that they'd been influenced by foreign powers.
So here's the crucial part. Instead of just accepting the court's ruling, the president goes straight back to the Oval Office and pulls out a different tool from the toolbox, the Trade Act of 1974. He uses that law to impose a brand new universal 10% tariff. The trade war wasn't over. It had just changed weapons. Now let's zoom out a bit, because while all this constitutional drama was exploding in Washington, something really historic was happening just up north. America's closest ally? Yeah, they were going rogue. Over at the World Economic Forum, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered a speech that would have been totally unthinkable just a few years ago. He basically told the world that the era of American dominance is over, and his message to other medium-sized nations was super blunt. If we're not at the table, we're on the menu. In other words, it's time to team up. And this isn't just talk either. Canada is actively building a whole post-American strategy. They're putting together an economic alliance of other middle-power countries. They're fast-tracking trade deals with Europe and Asia. And this one really ticked off Washington, they're openly exploring a new trade relationship with China. They are literally building a world where they don't have to depend on the U.S. The White House response was, as you might guess, swift and brutal. A threat of 100% tariffs on the entire Canadian economy. I mean, that's basically a threat of economic annihilation for Canada. And it would also make prices for all kinds of goods skyrocket for American consumers. But here's the thing. Canada isn't backing down. The most stable alliance in modern history is cracking right before our eyes.
Okay, let's shift gears now, because on the other side of the planet, this day of chaos also saw a really dangerous military escalation. We're talking about something that could blow up into a new war in the Middle East, with huge consequences for global oil prices and the economy.
The U.S. military buildup near Iran has hit a critical point. We're seeing a second aircraft carrier move in, more fighter jets arriving. But what's really important here is that there are no ground troops mobilizing. So this doesn't look like posturing for an invasion. It looks like positioning for a massive, sustained bombing campaign from the air and sea. And this slide just lays out how urgent this is. The president has issued this chillingly simple ultimatum to Iran. You've got 10 days to make a new nuclear deal, or you will face the consequences. The clock is now officially ticking down. You know, this isn't just about military threats. It's a total pressure campaign from every angle. Iran's economy is being strangled by sanctions, their banks are cut off, their oil exports are nearly zero. It's psychological warfare on top of a military buildup, and it's all designed to force their hand.
So, as all this is unfolding, the tariffs, the Supreme Court fight, the Iran standoff, guess who's watching? Europe. And according to our source, they're making a decision that is going to reshape the next 50 years. They are quietly walking away from America.
For 75 years, the transatlantic alliance has been the bedrock of the Western world. Well, that era is ending. European leaders are looking at the chaos coming out of Washington, and they're coming to a very logical conclusion. We just can't depend on this anymore.
And again, this isn't just empty words. Look at the real steps they're taking. The Baltic nations are building their own defense networks totally separate from NATO. The EU is rushing to sign trade deals with anyone but the US, and they're seriously talking about a joint defense fund. They're spending more on their own militaries, not to help America, but to get ready for a future where they have to go it alone.
Okay, so let's just zoom all the way out and connect the dots here. Any one of these events would be a huge story by itself, but when you put them all together, they paint a picture of a world order that is literally fracturing in real time.
Think about it. In a single day, America's highest court went head-to-head with the president over trade. America's closest friend and ally declared its economic independence. A countdown to a potential new war kicked off in the Middle East. And America's oldest allies in Europe started quietly planning for a future that doesn't include Washington.
You see, this is the kind of day historians are going to look back on and say, that was when it all started to change. We're not just reading about history in a textbook, we're living through it right now, as the rules of the entire world are being rewritten.
The world we've all taken for granted our entire lives is changing at a wild pace. Alliances are breaking, the old rules don't seem to apply anymore, so the only real question left is, what does this new world actually mean for you?